not in Kansas anymore.
You have my curiosity.
Are you telling me you built a time machine?
The Force will be with you. Assemble.
Welcome back to the Get Real podcast, the podcast where we get real about all of our favourite pop culture movies and TV shows. As always, my name's Sam, and with me today is my co-host, Chris.
Hello! Nothing witty today.
Nothing witty today. I didn't really think
These
it was
are serious times.
Extremely serious times. I didn't think it was quite suitable to do anything super witty today. So
The world is collapsing around us, and we're just here to comment on the bonfire.
the world is certainly collapsing, Chris. What is actually collapsing by no stretch of the imagination is the cinema experience right now, isn't it?
The movie-making industry.
Yeah, movie making, movie watching, pretty much everything is having a slight struggle, to say the very least, right now.
Hope none of you wanted to watch any films lately for the next, 6 months.
Yeah, they're all incredibly delayed and yeah.
happening.
So this week we're going to reflect a little bit on everything that's going on, a bit of news as well, and just really kind of chat about a very interesting article and a couple of very interesting thoughts about what the cinema experience could look like after the outbreak of COVID-19, the coronavirus.
Big yikes.
Big yikes. However, potentially for, some viewers, it might change in a way that's more suitable for people's lifestyles. We don't know.
One good thing will come out of this, I can say.
What would that be, Chris?
More time to watch Netflix and other streaming services.
Absolutely.
At least you can catch up on everything now, can't you?
Yeah.
There's that much content being made that you can't keep up with everything, but, social isolation.
Yeah, there's definitely good excuses to catch up on everything due to self-isolating and stuff, isn't there? So
We are definitely socially isolating.
You've got some bits to talk about, Chris, in terms of figures and updates and stuff, so do you want to take it away?
We've got plenty of news coming out as well, so I'll just go through the articles as I've got them, and I'll try and touch on some of the more newsy stuff before we get on to the meat and to veg of the situation, which is
very balanced, healthy diet, Chris.
Yes, we got to stay healthy in these times. So the first story that I've come across is that Avatar 2 is going to continue production despite the corona outbreak. So this is the first one that I've heard of that is still going.
Yeah, so to clarify, Avatar 2 right now, is it actually in full production or is it in pre-production? Or?
It is in production. What it says is they are taking a break from live action filming. That is delayed.
Okay.
But in the meantime, they're taking this time to do more of the VFX heavy shots. So have you seen now how they've got it so that you can see the CGI world that's been built inside of the camera?
Oh, okay.
James Cameron is able to move that camera physically, and it's moving it within the digital realm. So they're going to be doing a lot more shots like that. And a lot more of the CGI modelling.
Cinema tech and filming tech's just got so crazy. We've had the whole 3D space with
LED screens.
Yeah, The Mandalorian, Lucasfilm smashing that. And then you've got this. It's just this, movies being made like you've never seen them made before.
It was the producer, John Laudow, that has confirmed that they will not be taking a full hiatus. It's just a live action production in New Zealand has been delayed. Live action.
Cool.
So that is one bit of good news. Not everything has shut down production by the looks of it.
No?
While we're on more news before getting too heavily to it, you brought this to my attention. Armie Hammer Batman cowl from the long delayed, as in it was cancelled years ago, film Justice League Mortal has been revealed, and I've got it up in front of me. Have you seen this?
I've seen it, yeah. It's like a light brown cowl.
Yeah, it's a horrible colour.
Yeah, I think that was
the
the mould, I think.
Yeah.
And the latex there.
The latex mould. Like, this looks like the face looks a lot like Ben Affleck's Batman cowl, but then the ears look very much.
I don't think this looks very much like the Robert Battenbat.
Battenbat. No, it looks nothing like it.
Do you not think?
No, it looks nothing like it.
Well, I just thought like how far the mouth kind of goes back. If you bring up, I don't think the forehead or the ears do. But
Like,
if you look at
This looks like Batfleck, but this bit looks like Michael Keaton. You know, where he can't turn his neck?
yeah, true.
And it's all
actually, yeah.
big ears as well. It's like,
Ignore me. It looked different in my head.
I
don't know
one
why-
of those like Mandela effects. You
Why
remember
have
it
they
being
put
very
like
different.
wrinkles on the top of it?
Scowls. Yeah, they've even given crow's feet as well. They've tried to make this Batman look really old and pissed off. Like,
And Armie Hammer
I'm
is
a
like,
goddamn bat.
he's like the complete wrong person to do that because he's quite a youngish guy.
Yeah,
isn't he?
especially
So-
10 years ago when this film was meant to have been made.
sake.
He definitely was a lot more youthful.
Yeah.
It's like Batman's going to be there with a cane, just like, yeah, you get off my Gotham, you
Get off my property!
get off my property. I'm Batman. But yeah, so that's interesting that we're still finding stuff out about this film years after it was meant to
Yeah,
have
I
been made.
think the share of that was because the whoever it was that shared it, I think you might have it in front of you on there.
It's Ryan Unicombe.
And does it say who he was? I think he was a prop designer or something that was on the film at the
It
time.
says it was made at Weta Workshop in New Zealand, which is cool. While we're on lockdown, I feel like we need to inject some cool shit
That's
into
it.
the community. Here's one of Armie Hammer's cowl from Justice League Mortal. It doesn't say what he was on the thing. It probably says filmmaker. Yep. Anyway.
Okay.
That's the end of that
Do
story.
you got any more news on your side, Chris, to talk about?
Delays.
Delays. Let's talk delays. Let's get up to date with delays. So we've had quite a lot in terms of delays already in the form of No Time to Die, Quiet Place Part 2, Mulan. Black Widow has unfortunately joined the list of films that has been delayed. Has it been delayed indefinitely? Do we have a new date? I don't think we do. I think it's just been delayed until the whole situation with they can't really put an end date on it, and I doubt any movies and stuff are gonna come out before, at least very much before cinemas reopen. They're not going to want to take any risks. I imagine it's probably been delayed indefinitely. Any luck?
It's unclear when the film will be released.
Okay, cool. So it's
yes,
indefinite.
it sounds indefinite. Yeah, this is a bit of a blow, but this film's going to get a big audience no matter when it comes out, I reckon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's nearly as bad for Black Widow as it is for, say, New Mutants.
Yeah, for sure. That's another one that's been delayed.
Yeah, by 2 years.
I mean, every
Have you
That's
seen
old
the
news.
You've seen the meme of James Franco with the noose around his neck. It's like, oh, it's your first time. Yeah. And it's just there like, Black Widow has been delayed. New Mutants. Oh, it's your first time.
Oh, there's another meme as well where it's like, you won't let me live, you won't let me die, and it's like just the New Mutants. But I can't think of where that meme's from.
That's fine. I haven't seen this.
There's a lot of really funny memes. That
I
come out
think
the
at
back
this
of it.
point, though, it'd just be better off dropping it on Disney Plus.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that with the New Mutants, because they didn't pay to produce the film, did they? I mean, that was paid by Fox, and obviously that would have come out of the merger the takeover. The dictatorship of the mouse himself,
The House of
the
Mouse.
Iron Fist of Mouse, taking over Fox. But you know, I mean,
Mouse of Steel.
Oh, it's the you won't let me live, you won't let me die is the thing in Justice League where Superman comes back.
Oh,
That's the meme.
I'm just seeing the screenshot there with his horrible fake upper lip.
Oh,
He looks like he's sucking his top lip in, doesn't he?
yeah.
Give me my mustache back.
Funny. Anyway, we've established where that meme came from.
Yes.
I don't think it'd be the worst move to put this film out on streaming.
New Mutants.
Yeah, New Mutants. Yeah.
Yeah, not Black Widow, because
No.
that's going to go gangbusters at the box office.
Yeah.
But she's dead! How are they making a film when she's dead?
Yeah.
Speaking of releases onto a streaming platform, we've seen, is it Universal are dropping quite a few of their current cinema releases onto
Yeah,
streaming
so
services?
we're going to get onto the main topic. So, for those that are waiting for certain films to come out on streaming services, the Universal Pictures movie roster is The Invisible Man and The Hunt, as well as the upcoming Trolls World Tour film. They're going to be available to rent from this Friday, which will be last Friday when you're listening to this. In the US, I don't know whether it's been confirmed at all for the UK, but it's going to be available on on-demand platforms as well. So The Invisible Man came out into cinemas like really recently, and was it?
I think it was about 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah,
In the
and
UK,
then
4 weeks ago in the US.
The Hunt was only very recently as well.
Yeah.
But they'll be available to stream.
Which, to be fair, I think it is probably a good move. I think The Invisible Man has had the bulk of the views that it was going to get in the cinema.
Mm-hmm.
So this will, while the hype is still big on it, capitalise on it. Also, people aren't going to the cinema due to, obviously, lockdowns and stuff like that. People aren't really gathering in social areas, so people aren't going to the cinema. We've also now had it confirmed that Bloodshot will make it onto Movies on Demand.
Oh.
And it's only been out in the cinemas for 11 days worldwide.
I've heard surprisingly good things about Bloodshot, to be fair. I've heard that it's not, you're best not reading anything about it before you go in, but you'd actually be quite, it could potentially be a good cult film, like a good cult following. I've heard anyway. I mean, I might be completely wrong and just be chatting out my ass, but
I heard if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the film and you don't need to see it.
Yeah, I think that's what I've heard as well, actually.
Yeah.
I think if it didn't do that, it would have been a lot more of an interesting, surprising watch. There are some rumours that Warner Brothers might follow suit with Black Widow's delay with Wonder Woman 84. That's due out in the UK around 5th of June.
Yeah. So
yeah.
We've already seen that Minions 2 has been delayed, but that's not due to come out until July. So this is like the furthest back film that we've got so far that's been delayed.
Yeah, so
which is pretty crazy at the moment, they're delaying stuff from July.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they've probably got a lot riding on Wonder Woman 84. What, 1984? 84?
WW84. Yeah.
WW84.
Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah, they've got a lot riding on that film. I wouldn't be surprised if they push it back just to... I mean, the thing is now, is how are movie studios meant to schedule their releases to try to avoid other studios' releases?
Well, I've got an article here about Disney's movie delays causing issues with their calendar issues. So
MCU problems and all that, potentially.
Well, that's the thing, like, if Wonder Woman was meant to come out, I think, in December, and they pushed it back till June.
Yeah.
To spend more time on it, which fine.
I won't complain about.
And then think about it, if that comes out in 6 months' time, you'll have Black Widow coming out round about a similar time. And then also you'll have the Eternals potentially still. Like, what are Disney going to do? Are they going to bunch all their releases now at the end of the year, in the second half of the year? You think about it, it'll just be Disney fighting Disney.
I mean, the thing is people will still go see these films. They won't get repeat viewings of stuff that obviously your Marvel and Star Wars films tend to do really well on. But to be continued.
So Disney have had 3 major films delayed now: Mulan, Black Widow, and New Mutants. In summer, they've got Soul coming out and Jungle Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
That's 5 films potentially delayed. So if they push all them back, it's just going to be taking money out of their own pockets.
Yeah.
So it becomes difficult then. Are they going to push some of these back until first half of 2021? If so, that really seems to screw the pooch for Marvel.
Yeah.
Although, I think weren't they saying they were cutting back to only 2 Marvel films a year instead of 3?
Yeah, which is why we're getting Black Widow
potentially...
and Eternals in 12 months, isn't it? So, but I think they were focusing more on the streaming service and the TV shows. I think that's why they maybe limited it down to 2 a year so that they could have the focus on that. It's more long form, isn't it? You're going to get more success if you're releasing an 8-episode series weekly. You're going to spread that that income.
I think I think it was trying to avoid burnout as well. We've just had the major release of Endgame and the end of that phase.
Mm.
I think
everyone
they
was
wanted
feeling
to
really
slow
burnt out, yeah.
I think they wanted to slow it down a bit because last year we had Spider-Man Far From Home, Endgame, and Captain Marvel.
Yeah, there was a point where there was just so much coming out in the cinema.
Yeah.
I think it was around the time Captain Marvel came out, there was just so much going on at once that you did feel almost a little bit burnt out. Especially, everyone had that feeling with Solo and Star Wars at that time where we were getting one every 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I think pushing that back 2 years definitely helped make it feel more like an event and avoided that burnout a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the best plan for Marvel would probably be maybe you push it back and you release one this year. So maybe have Black Widow at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That'll also help the sales that might have lost from maybe the hype dying down with it being delayed.
Yeah.
So maybe if that's the only Marvel movie that we get this year, like Marvel Studios, because we are getting Morbius as well. There's no word on that being delayed yet. But if we just get Black Widow this year, then because it's the only one, it'll probably make up the viewers that it lost from it being delayed.
Yeah.
And then next year put out 3, maybe put Eternals in the first quarter of next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then go into, what have we got coming out next year, Marvel-wise?
You'll have
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, you'll have another Spider-Man film.
Yeah, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man.
And then Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Also, Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, is meant to get early video-on-demand release as well. Obviously, off the back of the pandemic, making sure people have got something to keep themselves busy. We're actually talking as soon as the 24th of March.
What were those 3 films that you just said got announced? There was Trolls, The Hunt,
And The Invisible Man.
And The Invisible Man. So when that was shortly revealed that they were coming out on home videos so shortly to give people something to watch during the pandemic and the close downs and everything, Kathy Yen, the director of Birds of Prey, actually took to Twitter, like, quote, retweeting it, saying, I'll be perfectly happy with Birds of Prey doing this, get it out to more viewers, give you all something to watch while you're stuck inside.
Yeah,
So I think she had a big hand in probably that going to streaming services so quick.
I mean, with that kind of film, it's not like, Star Wars where people will still be going to the cinema to watch it weeks after it's been out.
Mm-hmm.
You've got nothing to lose by putting this film out earlier on video on demand.
I think it might be the better thing for it, with it not quite doing as well as they maybe thought, possibly because of the R rating or because of the response to Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
So I think maybe this will give it the second life. Like the people that haven't had a chance to go see it in the cinema, might go out and watch. Like they'll make a point of watching it on demand and then get more buzz around it online and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it depends. Like if it's movies on demand, then you'll have to buy it through like Amazon Prime or Apple Movies, and stuff like that.
Like
so
Google
they'll
Play
be earning
movies,
money from it. So instead of a ticket sale, you're getting half the price of a ticket sale probably per purchase.
Yeah,
maybe even less, but it brings those numbers up for it, doesn't it?
Like the example that we'll talk about on the main topic is what you would pay for a video on Google Play Movies or the iTunes store. You'd actually pay more than what you would do for a cinema ticket, but you have to think that if 2 of you went out to the cinema, you would pay more for 2 or 3 of you if you're taking a family than what it would be if you were renting it at home or like buying the copy at home.
Yeah, well,
like cinema tickets can get quite. Like, I think it was like £15 for us to go to the cinema at our local one.
Yeah.
So like if 3 of us went, that's £45.
Yeah.
So if you think like if we had like a group of us and we bought that and watched it on demand at like one of our houses,
that's the thing. It typically costs about like £3.50 to £7 to rent a film.
Yeah,
depending on how new it is. Like, so that's half the price of a cinema ticket. So they're not earning nearly as much.
Yeah, I think
it's still better for them than nobody seeing it in the cinema.
Yeah. So we'll talk about this later. So we'll blitz over the last little bits of news. Harry Potter 4K 3D re-release is going to help reopen Chinese movie theaters. Obviously, where we are right now is China is starting to come out of their pandemic. They've opened up. I think they've closed the last coronavirus hospital that they had set up for it, and they're starting to kind of return back a little bit now. But obviously, they've been dealing with this since like January. So
I know at the beginning of the week they had 1 new case.
Yeah, so they're doing extremely well. So this will be a great way of supporting the opens. Kevin Smith revealed that he was working on a Mallrats 2 and a Clerks 3 script while he's in self-isolation.
Yeah, so we knew he was doing this anyway, but he said while he's in self-isolation, he's going to just proper hammer it because he won't be going out recording his podcast, doing all the web shows that he does and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for these because I'm a big Kevin Smith fan.
And then another interesting little news story, and then we'll get on to the kind of the meat and bones of the topic. Netflix is urged to reduce streaming quality from HD to SD, so high definition to standard definition, during the coronavirus crisis. And this is just because of the pure amount of traffic that's going to be going through internet providers and stuff like that, I imagine.
Save the networks, essentially, so everybody can view it without it crashing.
Yeah, they are genuinely having these conversations because, you know, you've got that many people that are going to be working from home and just generally using their internet a hell of a lot more than what they normally would be. That you've got it's like congestion with phone networks. You have to have the infrastructure there to be able to support it. And day to day, you will not have as many people as what we've currently got right now that are going to be bored and streaming and stuff like that, especially when work and jobs start to close and stuff, you know?
Well, that's the thing, like, with Netflix, they do put out publications of, like, when their peak times are for each country, like, where their viewerships peak and stuff like that. But when you think people are going to be isolated, the lulls are going to be much higher. You'll still get the peaks at the same time, probably.
Yeah.
Because it's just people's habits, but it'll be higher throughout the rest of the time. So if it's constantly higher, then the peaks are going to be higher as well.
Yeah.
So it's just a chance of just crashing it all completely.
For sure. So what we wanted to really talk about this episode was the changes that could happen with how how films are released and how prominent the cinema experience will become maybe after how the world has dealt with this pandemic. You know, cinemas all over the world have closed down. I mean, you've got a couple of figures on kind of stock and stuff and how that's affected on the stock market. Obviously, we know the stock market is virtually crashed, but
yeah. So in the UK, like, our major chains for cinemas are Odeon, Cineworld, View, I would say. Can't really think of any others. You got Empire as well, but they're mostly down in London. And they are all starting to close chains just temporarily while, obviously, the pandemic is spreading. Because if you let 200 people sit in a cinema together, it's going to spread, isn't it?
Of course it is, yeah.
And also, people don't want to do that themselves, so they're losing out on money as it is. You need to think they have to pay every time they show a film as well. Like, you have to pay for the rights to show the film. So it's just costing too much. So if they can close more cinemas, they'll save viewing royalty money. I was trying to think how to word that there.
I think the main thing is supporting, obviously, the whole social distancing and stuff, but obviously, you know, costs.
Yeah. So
massive.
What made me look into this was because I saw it reported earlier. The UK and Irish box office are down over 50% between Friday to Sunday this last weekend. So over a week ago for when you're listening to this. Cineworld are now reporting that they have had a loss of, well, their stocks at the beginning of the week were £150 a share, and now it's £21 a share. That is a staggering drop. It was over 40%. Sorry, they dropped over 40 points just this morning. They've gone back up a few, but not many. Shocking.
That's really crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's mad. It's like cinemas right now in the States are applying for kind of like bailout money and funding from the government, especially in the US. That is asking for government bailout following the closures, like AMC, and try and keep themselves in. I mean, we've heard today that just what was it, Cineworld are letting off staff. But I mean, you know, it's going to happen because how are these chains when they have no way of making income? You know, they don't have any kind of online sales. They're not able to show any films. The cinemas aren't even open. They have no revenue coming in, apart from Odeon have the Limitless subscriptions, which, let's be honest, right now, if you have a Limitless subscription, are you really going to keep it running? You know, unless you've already prepaid a 12-month annual plan or something.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not these cinema chains, if you pay for something like that, whether they are, you know, going to reimburse you in any way, we don't know. If you do have a subscription, you know, let us know. You know, how are you meant to still pay staff's wages? Unless you're very clever as a company and you've sat on a backup of money, unless you've got something in the bank, some business savings, then you've not really got a way of paying. I mean, a lot of the stuff in the UK now with the business loans is a lot of for small businesses and stuff that need that to survive. Like, what about the bigger companies? I mean, we've got clothing retailers. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard that today being the Thursday before this episode comes out in the UK, I know River Island have announced that stores are going to be closed.
Well, that's what I was about to talk about, because I used to work for them. I've still got contacts within the company. They are closed. Our local store is closing today at 5 o'clock. They normally close at 8 o'clock. Tomorrow they're closing at 5 o'clock, and then they're closed for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Their staff are still going to get paid for what shifts they should have been working, luckily, because they are an international brand and they do a lot of business online. Luckily, they've got enough money to do that, but other places just don't have that money. Like, Cineworld clearly doesn't have that much money. Our town centre, our local town centre, has just like had a major overhaul, and they built the new Cineworld, which we went to the day it opened, didn't we? I just went on now to see what films Cineworld are showing, to see like whether people would risk really going out to see it. Our local Cineworld, which has been open 2-3 months.
It's not been very long. It's fairly new, isn't it?
It's one of the ones that is closed. So there's only one screening of something tonight, which is a live broadcast. Oh no, it's not a live broadcast. It's a rebroadcast of VE Day 75 live from the Albert Hall. Is the only thing that you can get a screening for. But even that, I don't think is going to be shown. Oh no, that's tomorrow.
Yeah. Anyway, there's not a lot being,
like,
you know.
It's closed. There's no dates for anything. Oh, no. No, wait. Sorry, I'm reading that date completely wrong. That's in May is the next time it's showing anything.
Okay.
At the moment. So that's a brand new cinema that they've spent so much money on. I don't want to predict how much, but it's it's got,
it was a huge
12,
investment.
12 screens and a super screen.
Yeah, and it's in a brand new development in our town as well. Yeah.
And that is closed now.
So yeah, we're talking cinemas closing. We're talking the layoff of staff. It's going to be extremely hard to recover from a situation like that and eventually just go back to business as normal. So leading us on from that, there's a lot of talk. I mean, I've got an article here from MovieWeb, which is kind of the reason for us doing this episode on this topic, about how they're predicting that the movie business is going to change forever, in terms of we're looking at what Disney and, well, not Disney, Marvel, we're talking Warner Brothers, which is what we meant, not Warner Brothers. I'm getting Universal got there in the end, about how they're moving to an earlier release with The Invisible Man and The Hunt.
Yeah, moving to home releases instead of cinema releases.
So how these are moving to home release, and how they're going to be available to rent on demand platforms from this Friday or last Friday when you're listening to this. And will this be a way that a lot of other movie production companies and stuff will follow suit?
I mean, we've seen stuff like this in the past, like Annihilation got shipped to Netflix in the UK. It got a very small cinema release for a week before it came to Netflix and stuff like that. So it's not unprecedented. It's been done before, and these films have reached a certain amount of success. But I think if you do stuff like that, it's nowhere near going to hit the financial levels of, say, Endgame or something like that. Like, if Endgame launched at home, it would have had massive day one viewership, which it did anyway in the cinema, but the gross take-ins would have been so much lower, so it wouldn't have got the press around it that it did. Like, obviously it would have, because it was Endgame, but I mean, like, it wouldn't have been the biggest movie financially ever.
Yeah.
So it's strange, like, they could definitely do it to keep their audience and to keep films coming out, and it'll be a sign of good faith, which I think a lot of film companies need nowadays, is a touch of good faith, because they seem to just be like, taking and fucking with films and like beating down the filmmaking process into just a system to churn stuff out to make money. So it might work out for them, but I don't think it's the future going forward. It's
okay.
It can be in small doses, but I think they need to cherry pick what films they put out like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting because I think I lean towards the opposite side, which will obviously make this a much more interesting conversation. This article talks a little bit about how a similar change happened, obviously minus the pandemic, with CDs, records into MP3s, and then where we are now. To listen to an album on release, you would have to go out and buy the CD and listen to it, and that would be...
I remember it.
Yeah, I think we were in the kind of generation growing up where we kind of moved away from that, in that we were in that transitional phase as it was happening. So some of us, in our age would be purely digital. Some of us would go out and buy the albums, right? If we go back even further, you only were able to go out and buy a record from a record shop, a specific record shop. Well, let's think of the record shop like the cinema. You go there for that purpose, you buy a record, and that's your main way of income, right? So this talks about that and how when MP3 came around, that obviously it shifted that music industry quite a lot, and everything moved towards online. We did see, for a while, it's kind of changed a little bit now because obviously vinyl's come back in and a lot more people are getting records and stuff and more physical versions of stuff now. Maybe not CDs as such, but you get different versions and stuff, and different prints and stuff, and it's a collector's item now to do that. It's come back into fashion. When the MP3s came around, obviously record shops closed, and like we saw it ourselves with HMV. HMV dipped and it closed, and then it came back. It got saved, right?
What year was that? That was like 2015-ish.
Yeah,
our local one closed for a long time. It's reopened again now.
Yeah, right. So we live in Warrington, right? No one's going to
don't dox us.
No one's going to care about finding us or whatever. So we live in a small town called Warrington, which is between Liverpool and Manchester.
Yep.
And when HMV closed, we had this unit in Warrington that was a HMV for a long time. It closed. It reopened as a
Forehead. It was called
Forehead, which was just another HMV, really,
it was
wasn't
a knockoff. Yeah, essentially. Kept all the same staff and everything.
Yeah, and then it closed again. And then when HMV's come back, because it's now focusing a lot more on, it sells like pop vinyls, it sells comic books, it sells pretty much everything now. Then it's reopened again and it's had to adjust. So maybe it won't be like that forever with cinema, but maybe it's going to go through a really big transitional phase after this. I find I don't know, I think it's going to be such an operation after everything that's happened to reopen stuff. And the other thing you're going to have a problem with is if these video-on-demand services do well, if Universal makes a lot of money from The Invisible Man, The Hunt, and, versus what their cinema box office release would be, could it be... What are you laughing at? You're like looking at me.
No, it's just I tried to keep it in, but the way you said The Invisible Man, it just you sort of merged them into one word. It was just like The Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man. But yeah,
it just tickled me. Carry on.
So yeah,
I agree.
You agree. So yeah, I mean, how do you then? Let's say, for example, it goes well. Who then is going to follow suit? You're going to get potentially Black Widow. Look at the Rise of Skywalker coming out so soon. If people adjust to digesting media that way, why would then someone go out to... Yeah, you'd pay the experience to go and watch it in a cinema. But you go to a cinema because that is... where you're going to watch that film. You can't get it online. You're not going to watch a crappy filmed on a phone copy, are you? But if you have the option to watch it from home, on the move, to see and digest a film and just be in the know, more people now are wanting to be included, more in the know, up to date, versus anything else right now, right? Yeah. It's like having the latest iPhone, for example. People want to know the film, they want to talk about the film. It's such, there's such a spoiler culture now, isn't there?
Yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying, Mike. But I feel like like you said, it's the experience. Like when you used to go buy a record or something like that, you would then go home and listen to it by yourself. Like when MP3s and Spotify and stuff came around, like it was still an insular experience. You still got the same experience no matter whether you went and bought it or whether you just plugged your headphones into your phone and listened to it. Like you still got to listen to it on day one and get the experience. Whereas a cinema, imagine if you had just watched Endgame at home, like in this position where I'm sat right now, with your TV up on the wall, sitting there watching Endgame, or when we went to see it at midnight and we were surrounded by massive like nerds like us, and that moment where Cap catches Mjolnir. Imagine the impact of those two moments. People are still going to want to see things like this in the cinema. I think that's why I said we need to cherry pick the releases. Like films like The Invisible Man, and stuff like that, they do still work on a smaller screen at home because it's a more compact, especially The Invisible Man is a more isolating horror experience. It still works on smaller screens. Whereas these big tentpole blockbuster films are what we go to the cinema to see. So I think if we can't move it all like this. I think I agree with you. There definitely is a huge market for it out there. Like if they dropped Fast and Furious 9 on streaming services or onto video on demand day one, that'll have a massive audience and loads of people will be talking about it and people will be watching it, like you said, on the commute to work and stuff like that. My trains in the morning to work in Manchester are always full of people with like iPads or phones and stuff like that watching stuff. I remember when Stranger Things season 3 dropped, people were like watching that on the train and stuff like that, and I hadn't seen the season finale yet, so I was like trying to figure out a place to like look on the train so that I didn't see a screen of people watching it. There is definitely this culture for it, but I feel like cinema would really start to suffer if you didn't have the cinemas to go see them at. And I feel like the films that deserved attention then wouldn't get attention. Because imagine you drop loads of films out onto a streaming platform, like day one. Think about what we saw at the Oscars this year. So you had The Joker, you had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then you had Parasite. Parasite would not get a look in from most people at all. They would just be there streaming The Joker or streaming Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and stuff like that. The smaller films would become even smaller and get lost even more. Think about these small little independent bands and stuff like that you see. Like, they have a small cult following, but they don't hit the big time because they're just lost in a sea of new releases on Spotify. Like, I go onto the new release page every Friday on Spotify to see what new music's come out, but it's only ever like big names. You'll get the occasional smaller band, but that's normally cherry picked for each individual listener. And then I'll be like, I'm sure somebody X band was putting out music this week, and then I'll go onto their artist page and I'll find it like that.
I love X band.
Yeah,
you listen to the new album? No, okay,
but I will.
That's a decision for later.
Yes,
secret plans.
But that's what I mean. Like, things will just get lost in like the noise of the internet and everything.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So like, I think when you said before how like if Fast 9 came out on streaming soon, that'd have a big following. I think that is maybe quite subjective in terms of that is how we would perceive that film, because we wouldn't go see that in the cinema.
I don't mean that. I
think then maybe we would go to the cinema and watch Black Widow, right? Yeah. Because we would want that experience. That is like how if you were a huge John Mayer fan, you might go buy John Mayer's latest album on vinyl because you want that physical attachment to it.
Which I do sometimes.
Which you do sometimes because you really like John Mayer. Okay. But however, are there enough people out there that like John Mayer that much to go out and buy his vinyl, or will they just buy the album on iTunes or add it to the streaming list on Spotify? So
I wasn't trying to talk down about fast fans. No. Because that has got a very dedicated audience. That's what I mean.
However, it's a perfect example of people probably look at the films that we look at that way. So there's probably a lot of people out there that would probably stream Black Widow because they might not want to go out to the cinema. They may, they might want to watch it at like 11 o'clock at night or something. And, people work, people have really busy schedules now. You've got to take time out to go to the cinema. If you can have it on a waiting list on Disney Plus for when you get home, maybe you have to pay a little bit of a premium for that on Disney Plus, maybe. But if you have that option, there's a lot of casual watchers out there that may choose to opt into that.
Well,
and
definitely.
just another quick point on when you spoke about how you would rather have that experience in the cinema. You're correct. And when we say we had that moment with Captain America in the cinema, correct. It's a better medium to watch something. But when we have that emotional link with what happens in that film where Cap catches that shield, you would probably still have Hammer. Sorry. He always catches the shield. When he catches...
He'd be a crap hero if he didn't. His one thing is the shield.
Smacks him in the face. When he catches Mjolnir in Endgame...
Yeah.
Emotionally, right? Let's say, maybe not on my shit TV on the wall, but let's say on the better TV downstairs with the soundbar and stuff, flexing.
Humble brag.
Yeah, it's not even mine, but oh well. Let's say, you're watching it on a better medium, right?
Yeah.
Then you would still have that emotional thing of that happening. You know what I mean? But you wouldn't have that experience where there's the sound and stuff and you're in a cinema. But let's question that, would people not do that now because they've not had the opportunity to watch Endgame on release day at home? Let's say you watched Endgame on release day at home, not in the cinema, you would probably still emotionally react to what happens in the film the same way. And dependent on your setup at home, the experience may still be good. He's laughing because Chris is smiling because either he's going to come back with a really good point or he's like, oh, you're pulling my arm a bit now. But, that's because we really appreciate that film. We're the people that would go out and buy the vinyl for Avengers Endgame. That's the way.
That's the thing that you can buy. I've seen it.
Yeah, you can, and we probably would. And we go to the cinema and watch the film. But that's because we invest in it.
Yeah.
But if you take that limitation away from people to watch it at home and make it a more acceptable format, which it could be after these next few months, do you lose the need of people saying, well, I don't really need to go watch it at home? The question is do movie studios adapt and go that way with it? We'd have to wait and see. But could the movie experience change that way? I reckon it could.
I don't disagree with you. I think so. I have got a good point, like you were saying, like that smoke was because I got a good point. Just to capitalize on what you just said at the end, then I think if we start doing stuff like that, it's going to be hard to go back. I think cinema ticket sales will plummet and struggle to regain.
Yeah, we'll see.
Once people have to start going back to the cinema.
If that happens, we would see the death of vinyl like we saw. There's not to say that it wouldn't come back because nostalgia.
Well, that's the thing. Like, nobody buys CDs nowadays unless they've got an older car and they can't plug the phone in. Like,
but the difference with a vinyl nostalgia and a cinema nostalgia is a cinema is brick and mortar.
Yeah,
and it needs staff. A vinyl you can buy online.
Yeah,
it's tough, innit?
So my point that I was going to make was, I did this in my dissertation. So
here he comes. Right, knuckle in for the next 2 hours, listeners.
I was studying the impact of cinema and group listening and viewing experiences and stuff like that, and it has been scientifically proven that if you view something together in a communal experience, it does actually have a psychological impact on how you perceive the media, and also it has a physical reaction on your body. If you see a horror film with other people, then when you leave, because you've shared trauma and pain, like because fear is technically a form of pain, it then heightens your pain receptors. So once you see anything like with a group of people, your emotional limitations are higher. Like your body, I'm stumbling over my words now. So your body releases different pheromones and stuff like that from a group viewing experience, whether it's happiness, sadness, fear, whatever. So when you leave, your pain receptors are higher. You're more you'll tolerate higher pain levels, was what I was trying to get to. And also, you also understand the people in your community better. You have a greater social connection to more people after having an experience like that. So like I was saying, I chose that moment because I know when we saw it in the screen, people were like, oh, oh, that was one of the best moments in cinema for me, because I just felt this buzz. My hairs were standing on end, having everybody reacting like the same way and stuff like that. Whereas if we were at home, like if me and you watched that film day one together and stuff, we would still have that reaction. But our then social connections to the people around us when we left might not be as high as if we saw them.
So if we take that
big thing,
take that bit, right? Yeah, you when you watch a film and you have that moment, like when we watched The Force Awakens and the crawl came on and everyone applauded.
Yeah,
you have that moment, right? But when you leave the cinema, you don't talk to those people. You talk to your mates and stuff. So you might go watch Endgame with a group so you might go watch it with a group of 5 of us.
Yeah.
So would you say that there's a factor that people's reactions around you is a big factor to it, but is the bigger factor not that you're experiencing that with people whose views you care about, who you're in the row with, versus strangers in the audience?
So this study
could you not replicate that experience if you had like a premiere night at your house where you had like a few mates over and stuff? And
yeah, definitely. But like this study, it was complete strangers. They didn't know anybody else in the cinema. It was all a complete random group of strangers. But what I mean is, like, if you go and see, say, like Parasite or Moonlight or Manchester by the Sea or something like that, a more character-driven drama, those films are very much about the human condition and stuff like that. And if you view that in a cinema experience, even if you don't know the people, as you leave, you will have a greater understanding of community, society, people themselves. So you can get that sat by yourself, but it makes it a lot more insular. You look at yourselves typically, whereas when you watch it surrounded by people, it creates a bond between and a unity of a community. That's what I feel like if we move completely digitally, we will start to lose our connection to cinema and film. Whereas, like I said, when you bought a vinyl or you bought a CD, or even if you listen to it on Spotify, you're typically listening to it alone, aren't you? Like, you'll have your headphones in, you'll be listening to it. If you buy a vinyl, you'll go home and listen to it. You might have maybe one other person there with you, say, buy a vinyl, take it home, put it on my vinyl player, and have my door open, like my parents in the house and stuff would hear it as well, but you're not having a connection to it. It's still an insular thing. So when it all moved digitally, it didn't really change the experience that much. Whereas if you change the cinema to purely being online or home release and stuff like that, you're not going to have as many groups of people going out and viewing it together. We will lose our connection to cinema and the filmmaking process.
Sounds weird, but maybe would you reckon that there would be a gap in the market for maybe not cinemas, but maybe smaller, more independent, either movie houses that could do streaming parties or something when something comes out, or maybe it could be, a more common thing. I was in Manchester not long ago, and there was what was the coffee place called? I think it's Foundation Coffee in Manchester. Shout out, because the place is really nice. They were showing The Joker on the day or the night before it came out on digital.
Okay.
No, not on digital, on physical Blu-ray release. It must have been the night of, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to show it. But there was quite a few people there watching it. And maybe is that what it looks like then? Let's say it does, cinema chains and stuff stop opening. Do you reckon there's maybe space for that? Or maybe...
I think we would have to.
Yeah.
I think you would have to otherwise people would lose the passion for film, I think. It's
a fantastic business idea as well. It does happen.
We've seen viewing parties for like Game of Thrones and stuff like that. The final series of Game of Thrones, there was bars and restaurants and stuff like that were doing every week. They were doing viewing parties and they would sell out, and like that's where we see like the reaction videos from like when Arya killed the Night King, spoiler alert, and stuff like that. And things like that are great, especially for TV shows, because you don't normally have that communal aspect.
And a TV show is a perfect example, because you're never gonna watch a TV show for the first time in a cinema, are you? No. And people only ever really digest, say, Game of Thrones or let's say The Mandalorian on TV screens or laptops and stuff.
And I think that's why they have a much bigger internet following around them, a community, because you don't have that shared instant reaction that you do in a cinema. You go online to seek it out.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is definitely possible if we move to a streaming platform for films and stuff, but I feel, like I said, you won't get the small filmmakers would start to die out almost. Like, you wouldn't get the same impact. Most filmmakers that you see or hear, and I know when I wanted to get into film and stuff like that, it was always like, you have a definitive experience, typically in a cinema or something.
Would you say it's going to affect the craft of films though as much as versus just? I mean, let's look at music production, for example. While we're on the topic of the craft, music production has changed a little bit. You've got a lot more independent artists out now, being self-producing and stuff. But that's come with the times of the equipment and software and stuff, and ways of learning is a lot more accessible than what it ever has been. But would you think? So you agree that the craft will be damaged by the idea of the releases being more accessible, I suppose? Is that because of the amount, like the budgeting, maybe because of big cinema blockbuster releases, that there won't be as much money in it?
Well, you need to think straight away, like, the income of a film will probably be halved at the minimum, like, because of, like we discussed, the price of a rental versus the price of a cinema ticket. And like you said, you could have 20 people around to watch the premiere of Black Widow for like a £7 release, unless they hike the price up, in which case people will be like, I'm not going to pay it, it's too expensive, I'll wait for it to come out on DVD for like £12. So the income of films will drop, so then the budget of films will drop as well. And with the price of how much it costs to make a film nowadays, you just won't be able to make the same films anymore.
Yeah, I suppose. And
then independent filmmakers just won't have a job at all. Like, you saw, like, when it went on, when music went digital and stuff like that, a lot of artists did start to struggle because they weren't earning any income.
Yeah.
Whereas now, luckily, like, it's stabilized, and like you said, people are able to do a lot more for themselves, a lot cheaper, and you are able to put music out there more freely now because you don't need to pay to get physical copies made. So, like, you can compare the two industries a bit, but I don't think it's apples and oranges. It's not the exact same thing.
Of course,
it's not directly comparable. Sam, this is the most real conversation we've ever had on this podcast.
I've really enjoyed this conversation.
I'm enjoying this conversation. Have you got anything else to say about this?
I mean, we've kind of talked this a little bit. Like, we've definitely shared our thoughts.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really interesting to know what other people think.
Definitely. Let us know. Like, I'll have this conversation loads, and I'm willing to have people change my mind, and change my mind, like, or just bring some sort of fresh insight. Like,
I'll try and change your mind, Chris.
I'll try and change your
mind. I'm all
mind.
about the digital revolution,
like,
Chris.
Like we both said, we both understand each other's thing, and I think it's not a black and white answer. I don't think it's like only stick to cinemas. I don't think it's only stick to thing, because we're already seeing it, like I said, with Annihilation and films like this.
I think
we are able to move to digital releases and it still work.
I think what I'd like to see is a hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
Like what we saw with Annihilation, it's the perfect example. My only fear is that we want a hybrid of the two because...
Or The Irishman as well.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem is like, for those people that would go see it at a cinema, is keeping a cinema open and employing staff, and is it, at that point, is it enough if you give the real test I think that's going to happen and we're going to see is if places do decide to release stuff digitally a lot sooner than what they normally would. I think that when we see that happen, that'll be the real proof in the pudding that it'll either kill it off, or you will still have people go to the cinema, won't you?
Yeah.
And I think once a company or once someone takes that risk of doing that, I think that's when we'll get an answer. But it's tough, isn't it? It's a real tough one because we're assuming that someone would take the risk of putting it out right now. All we're seeing is digital releases come out sooner. and whether or not people would just wait for digital releases if they do come out sooner, or whether it's just a temporary thing because of the pandemic.
I think the answer is in the grey in between. Like, I think what might be a good solution is maybe if we keep the tentpole films in the cinemas, or like anything with, one of my favorite things is R screens. So it's a thing in the UK where like you can nominate a local cinema and you nominate a film to be aired there. Like I went to see some of the Studio Ghibli films and stuff like that. And if you can sell enough tickets to that screening, they'll put it on.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go sell a cinema screen out to see a 20, 30-year-old film and stuff like that, which is great. And I think maybe smaller films could move online. So films that would typically get lost in the cinema.
It might be a good thing for more indie films, because if more people are used to, look at some Netflix shorts Netflix films that are really popular.
I was about to mention Parasite. Imagine if Parasite in the UK had dropped on Netflix, and Netflix had given it the buzz. Like Okja, same director, that came out to quite a big viewership on Netflix straight away.
Yeah.
So say if Parasite this year had gone onto Netflix, it had still been available for Oscars and stuff like that, because I think that's the biggest thing that's keeping small films in cinemas rather than on streaming sites, is for the awards. I think if we move smaller releases onto streaming services so that they get the credit and the viewership that they deserve, and we keep the big tentpole blockbuster films, and then maybe some of the smaller films that are nominated to go into cinemas, that'll keep the cinema chains alive. It allows us to still have those same experiences, and then smaller films are also getting a bigger viewership because they're going out onto more regularly available streaming services. So maybe that's the answer in the middle.
Maybe.
I think it's just about cherry picking what films are released digitally. Damn. We talked.
I really enjoyed that.
Real talk.
I really enjoyed that real talk.
You guys let us know what you think. Like we said, we're willing to have our opinions changed, or just new information, stuff that we might not have thought about.
We may get
a different point of view.
Yeah, stuff like that.
We definitely probably got some things wrong 100%.
In that. 100%.
But
however, it's an interesting time generally, whether or not this comes a massive change or whether things just revert to how they are. And we might look back on this and think, God, imagine when we thought cinemas weren't going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of them. Yeah, let us know as well if you enjoyed something like this. Obviously, it's not the greatest terms to be talking about this thing on. We've not chose to review a movie this week. We've chose to talk about a topic that's really important.
We chose to talk about movies.
Yeah, movies in general. And to be honest with you, this is just a really big news story right now. It's taken from an article that we've seen, and it's been a bit refreshing to not sit here and review a movie, to be fair.
Yeah. One last thing I want to ask you then is, are you still going to be as excited or willing to go out to the cinema for these films that have been delayed? Do you think you'll still make the push to go out and see them in the cinema when they are finally released?
I think, you know what, let's say if Black Widow came out on streaming on Disney Plus before we got a chance to go to the cinema, but if it was a week difference between me waiting to go to the cinema or watching it and not going to the cinema, I'd probably watch it and not go to the cinema. I wouldn't personally, I wouldn't pay for my Disney Plus subscription, let's say it comes out on there, maybe pay a little bit of a premium to watch it as a blockbuster, and then also then pay to go watch the cinema, because I think with the cinema it's that first time you watch it and it's the experience all at once. I don't think I would.
Say then No Time to Die, it's not coming out online, but it's coming out in 6 months. Say it's 5 months down the line and it's about to come out. Are you excited? Are you now going to go see it in the cinema? Or are you put off now?
Well, I might put off and wait for it to come out. Do you mean on
maybe
Blu-ray
wait
or something?
8 months.
Yeah,
instead of the 6 months, wait 8 months and get it on DVD.
I think with the circumstances of the films that have been delayed, I think that's almost like we were so close to being able to watch it, so I probably would go to the cinema.
Okay.
Plus, I think that, if cinemas are that close for that long, we wouldn't have been in the cinema in ages. So I think that plays a big factor in why I would go and watch it. I'd say I'm still just as excited.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
am. I think that's why we don't need to worry about these films as much. I think they're still going to get a pretty good viewership when they come out.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to wrap it up there.
Let us know what you want us to cover in the future, because it is a bit slow for new releases at the moment, as we just said.
We might just pick some topics and talk about topics. I've quite enjoyed doing this.
I also thought...
Unless we all go into lockdown and we can't see each other again, Chris.
We can do this over Skype. We can both record independently and send it over. Westworld Season 3's just started, so maybe we catch up on Westworld, because it's something that I've always wanted to watch.
Clone Wars series.
Clone Wars.
Yeah, there's quite a bit, maybe some TV bits next week.
Yeah, so let us know what you want us to cover. You can let us know on Twitter, @GetRealPod, on Instagram, @GetRealPod, on Facebook, GetRealPod, and our email address is getrealpoduk@gmail.com. So let us know on any of those forms what you want us to cover, your opinions on what we've discussed today. And Sam, where can you listen to us?
Where you listen to us right now, listeners, and as well you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. Be sure to leave us a like, rating, review, 5 stars, thumbs up.
We are available on YouTube. Subscribe to us
Of course
on
we
there.
are, yes.
Leave a comment on there, because we'll definitely read the comments on YouTube. So that's another place to get in contact with us.
Absolutely. Right.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody. Try to stay safe.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Follow your own government's guidance wherever you are. We know we have listeners all over. So, yeah. If you are a UK listener, what I have been doing over these last few episodes is just putting the coronavirus guidance in the description as well.
Yes.
We'll do our little bit to stay safe. Make sure you do too. And we'll catch you next week.
Thank you very much.